let's talk about warp wall for just a second. These are going to be the mistakes that I see happening most often, as well as a full walkthrough on how to start succeeding on warp wall if you haven't already. Now, if you're brand new and you've never tried a warp wall before, I'm going to tell you something that's going to blow your mind. The warp wall is not about speed. I can't tell you how many times I've had somebody come in and they go, oh, I've totally got this, no problem. They don't want any instruction, they don't need any help, they've got it. And 90% of the time when I have somebody that just says, I want to go for it, here's what it looks like. Obviously, that's not what we're trying to do. Now, it doesn't have to do with top speed or running as fast as you can. It has more to do with your body positioning and your acceleration. Now, the first thing to cover with body positioning is it has everything to do with where your hips are in relation to your feet, or vice versa. It could go either way. But your hips and your feet, if they're relative to each other, where they're positioned relative to each other. Anyway, what do I mean by that? Well, if I'm standing right here, so my hips are over my feet, I'm vertically stacked, as we've discussed before on this channel. If I am vertically stacked, my weight is pushing my feet toward the floor. So if I'm in that same relative position on the warp wall, then I am pushing my feet down. If my hips are over my feet on the warp wall, I am pushing my feet down the wall, which means it's more likely that I'm going to slide down the wall, especially if you don't have sticky shoes on. Now, on the subject of ninja shoes, I do get this question all of the time, what kind of ninja shoes should I wear? There's a bunch of options. I personally love my Zeros. This is the Nexus Knit from Zero. It's awesome, it's super sticky, it's breathable, it's comfortable, and it's probably the most normal looking barefoot shoe that I own. Now, I personally love my barefoot shoes. I love my Zeros. I've been wearing them for like 6 years now. I've tried a few different kinds. My top three when it comes to Ninja specifically from Zero are the Zelen. That's my #1 recommendation. I love the Zelen. Those are so sticky and they're very breathable, very comfortable shoe. The Forza Trainer, which I'll grab in just a second and show you guys. That one's an amazing, super sticky Ninja training shoe. And then I've got the Nexus Knit here, which I didn't intend for it to be a training shoe. It just kind of, I was wearing it and I was like, oh wow, it's actually really sticky. So I train in them sometimes. This is probably the most normal looking barefoot shoe that I've found. So that's one of the reasons I like it so much. Now, you don't have to wear barefoot shoes. It's just what I like. It works really well for me. Like I said, I've been training in them for about 6 years now, and I just can't wear anything else. They're the best. If you want to check out some barefoot shoes, there is a link in the description below. Help support the channel. If you check that out, that does help me out a ton. Other options, if you don't want to go all in on a barefoot ninja shoe, there are plenty of other options. You can use Feiyus. That's F-E-I-Y-U-E. They are awesome. I used to wear them for years before I discovered barefoot shoes. They're super thin. They're zero drop. Only advantage that a barefoot shoe would have over a Feiyu is if they last a little bit longer and they're gonna let your toes spread out more. The Feiyus are a little more constrictive, but you know, to each their own. Onitsuka Tigers, I used to train in those all the time. They're not quite zero drop. They got about this much lift in the heel, but they're super sticky. And then finally, the Stealth 2.0 by Take Flight. My goodness, that's a sticky shoe. So check those out. I think they range anywhere from like 25 bucks for a pair of Feiyus. They're not gonna last super long, but I did have a student who wore the same pair for almost 4 years because he only wore them when he was doing ninja training. All the way up to, you know, if you grab a pair of the Take Flight Stealth 2.0s or you grab a pair of Zeros, could be 100 bucks, but you know, whatever works best for you. And real quick before we get back to it, I just wanted to show you my actual ninja training shoes. These are the Forza Trainers by Zero. They're awesome. They're a little worn because I've had them for like a year and a half. So they've seen some stuff, but I mean, after a year and a half, the tread's still looking that good. It's pretty dang impressive. I do a lot of parkour, a lot of ninja, a lot of wall climbing, those kinds of things. But I love training in these. The only shoe that I would recommend more than the Forza for ninja is gonna be the Zelen by Zero, but I don't have those with me right now. So just take my word for it. Check them out if you want to. There's a link below in the description. So as I mentioned before, there's two main things to account for when it comes to warp wall training if you want to do it right. One is your body positioning. Are you leaning back? Are you bringing your knees up? Are your feet in front of your hips or underneath them? Those are the main things you want to try and focus on when it comes to warp wall training. That, and you also want to make sure that you're not reaching for the wall. If you're reaching for the wall, if your hands are touching the wall, there's no way you're not leaning forward. And if you lean forward, you're going to slide down. So keep driving your arms. Remember, the power from your knee comes from pulling your elbow back. So if you're not pulling your elbows back when you run or pulling your arms back when you run, you're not going to elevate your knee as hard or as high. You're not going to get your feet in front of your hips and you're going to slide down the wall. So in short, keep your hands off the wall. You are not Spider-Man. Your hands are not going to stick to this and make it any easier for you. You're going to get more power and you're going to have better acceleration if you keep driving your arms until you're actually ready to grab the top. So let's talk about acceleration. Acceleration has to do with going up the wall, not going at the wall. You do kind of want to speed up the closer you get, but you really want to ramp things up as you're going up the wall. Because remember, if you go fast at the wall, you will go into the wall instead of up it. So we're making sure we're getting our knees up high, we're leaning back, we got our feet in front of our hips, we're keeping our hands off the wall. We've got all that covered. Well, the last thing we need to go over to make sure that you are staying safe on the wall is how to safely come down. Now, in my experience, and I've been teaching this for 10 years, there's one way that's the absolute safest way to come down off the wall, and that is to put both hands on the wall and slide down just like that. I know a lot of people really like to turn around and run down the wall. Now, if you're super experienced and you've got air awareness and body awareness and all that stuff, I mean, it's not the end of the world if you do, but I don't see the benefit of taking that risk when you could just slide down this way. Additionally, if you turn around and run down, it's an easy way to roll an ankle or trip and fall and face plant, which I've seen people do. You definitely don't want that to happen. And finally, turning around and sliding like this. If you're on your own, that's probably fine, I guess. I don't see a ton of advantage to just doing this as opposed to sliding on your belly. But if you have a spotter behind you, this is definitely not as advantageous as sliding down belly facing the wall. The reason is when you go to turn around, you're likely going to whack them. And then on top of that, you might slide right into them and you guys both end up hurt. It's just not the best way to go. You're coming down the wall, come down, hands on the wall, on your belly, or in kind of a plank position, slide down just like that. Safest way to dismount off the wall.